Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Cliff Johnson, with the Mojave Podcast Transmission. Today is 7:10 a.m., 6/11/2026, and this will be my third boot. I got a new server for Twitch, so hopefully this works. And without further ado,
You wouldn't believe it if I told you. Look at this Dogway rice noodles. It changed hands at the end of last year. This whole street of tobacco, alcohol, and restaurants. That's my place. Even the lottery shop changed owners. That burger shop poured nearly 400,000 yuan in, and it collapsed ages ago. The shop can't even be rented out. Ting Bao's noodle shop. The old owner ran an eco rice noodle place. Went under too. They swapped in a new brand. Now it's barely holding on. Wen Xiaoxia's shop is up for rent. The snail rice noodle place is up for transfer too. Chu Cha is still running. But the tobacco and liquor store, almost always closed. Duckheads are doing okay. On this whole street, only me, him, and Ting Bao are still hanging in. The claypot veggie place went under. The owner lost over 200,000 yuan. Now he's setting up a stall out front on 7th Street. Chi Ge, that guy's wild. He packed up overnight, opened one night, closed the next. Look at this business now, this street. It's clean as if it's been washed with water. Only the strongest survive. Same for the shops behind. Man, this environment is brutal.
这大街上都是出租转让。
This whole street, all for rent, all for transfer, 4, 5 shops in a row, totally gone. I can't even imagine it.
It's the third day of opening. Daily sales, just a few dozen yuan. No business at all. Paid 30,000 to join the franchise. 30,000 for the shop lease. 10,000 for renovation and equipment. 70,000 gone. And I'm making just a few dozen yuan a day. I can't even cry, guys. I just can't survive. I regret it so much. I can't hold on.
If you take a walk through China's smaller county towns, you will notice a striking social change. Many stores stand empty in rows, and those still open barely stay afloat. This leaves whole commercial streets looking empty and quiet. In sharp contrast to the closed shops, one type of business is doing very well in these county towns. Mahjong parlors stay busy. Walk down the streets on any day of the week, and you will hear voices and see smoke coming from the parlors. Li Dong, a local resident, told reporters, "Our county's economy is very weak, and that is true for the surrounding towns as well. The most profitable businesses are mahjong parlors and some of the sex-related industries. Everything else struggles to survive." This situation is not limited to 1 or 2 towns. It shows the economic reality across more than 2,000 county-level areas in China today. Why do mahjong parlors do well while other businesses fail? The answer is simple. Only mahjong parlors make money. Any other shop quickly fails. Opening a community mahjong parlor takes an investment of just tens of thousands of yuan, sometimes even less. Daily profits come from the rake on the tables. During holidays, owners can count cash by the handful. Many local business owners have seen the decline of traditional shops and found what they call the wealth code. Small eateries have turned into community mahjong parlors. Even the back rooms of barbershops now hold tables. But limited populations mean strong competition for customers. Some parlor owners go to great lengths. They offer free lavish meals. Some give rice and cooking oil to regular players. Others provide services like those high-end restaurants, such as childcare, homework tutoring, and shuttle services for players. Yet behind this distorted prosperity lies a stark economic reality. China's county towns, once vibrant local economies linking urban and rural life, are facing a deep structural collapse. Most of those seated at the table are retired state-owned enterprise workers, civil servants, or unemployed youth with few prospects. As factories and major businesses withdraw, regular jobs that could absorb local labor have sharply declined. Young people can only find work in food delivery, courier services, or low-end service jobs. With few alternatives and continuous losses from other businesses, idle laborers are left to spend long hours and their anxieties at the mahjong table. As one local lamented, life has no cure except mahjong. Play when happy, play when frustrated. Lose, then play again. Win, then keep playing. Li Dong revealed that some counties have even developed entire mahjong streets. Multiple parlors now stand in every village. For the unemployed and underemployed, those parlors have become a main source of work. People pour tea, clean tables, or step in to fill in a missing player. They earn a little extra in tips.
It's gotten a
When
little
legitimate
better.
economic
I had
paths
to
stay
do a
blocked,
different
people
server.
often turn to great industries. They
Sorry,
seek
guys,
survival
about
or
all the
quick profits.
rebooting early and
The booming
stuff.
mahjong parlors
Good
in these
morning.
counties show a distorted system full of irregularities. These parlors often cross from leisure into underground gambling. Many now host illegal lotteries and other illicit betting. This leaves countless families bankrupt or broken. Li Dong noted that local law enforcement largely turns a blind eye. Village officials, township leaders, and public servants themselves take part in the gambling. It has become a major feature of the county economy. Accompanying this is a rise of sex-oriented service industries. Many people without professional skills or legal income turn to the gray economy. Some do so willingly, while others feel forced. Some parlors act as hidden spots for soliciting clients. Barbershops, bathhouses, and fringe beauty salons have become places for fast cash. This is not just a side effect of declining businesses. It signals a dangerous drop in public order and moral standards. The spread of gray industries has also worn down social norms and ethics. With few real job opportunities, deception has become a way to survive. Idle people turn into social media influencers. They sell low-quality health products to unaware elders. They exploit lower-tier markets without punishment. Authorities often follow, and if no one complains, officials do nothing. This lets the practices grow unchecked. At its most extreme, this warped economy fuels serious crime. Residents report high divorce rates. Some try to get large bride prices through fake relationships or marriage schemes. They do this due to lack of legitimate income. Such scams often leave victims hurt both financially and emotionally. Sometimes they trigger violent payback. Inside and around these crowded parlors, fights over gambling debts, loan pressure, and personal ties regularly cause serious public security problems. Some even lead to deaths. County economies collapse once local industry support disappears. Sex, gambling, and scams now fill the empty space left by declining physical commerce. At its core, it serves as a dual sedative. It offers both material and psychological relief for desperate communities. This is not economic vitality. It's a desperate attempt to cope with a system on the brink of collapse. Why are county economies increasingly strained? Why do storefronts keep changing hands while owners still report losses? The core reason is that local money keeps draining away. At the same time, private enterprise suffers major setbacks. Historically, counties form self-contained economic loops. A vendor selling buns for 10 yuan would buy meat next door, the butcher would buy shoes, and that 10 yuan circulated dozens of times, supporting countless local businesses. Today, 4 major extraction machines have dismantled this ecosystem. First, internet platforms play a big role. Delivery workers and restaurants seem local, but of every 10 yuan spent on food delivery, 3 yuan goes to the platform. This money flows directly to the headquarters of tech giants in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen. It never returns to the county. Second, national chain brands have taken over. As local shops close, they get replaced by standardized tea shops and discount stores. Young entrepreneurs invest family retirement savings to open franchises. Yet equipment and supplies cost too much. Daily profits leave local accounts in less than 24 hours. They move automatically to top-tier cities. Counties have become pure distribution points and cash machines for outside capital. Third, young people used to earn money elsewhere and spend it in their hometowns. Now, high-paying city jobs have shrunk. Young locals return with salaries of around 3,000 yuan, but living costs run 5,000 to 6,000 yuan. Elderly retirement funds fill the gap. This does not create new wealth for counties. It rapidly depletes existing capital instead. Fourth, infrastructure investment has collapsed. For more than a decade, county towns relied on land revenues and construction projects to drive local economic activity. With debt reduction policies now in place, now projects have stalled. This leaves contractors and related workers with less wealth. It instantly removes support for high-end consumption. If capital outflow has drained these counties, the worsening business environment has uprooted their very foundations. Facing tight local budgets, authorities increasingly rely on fine-driven economies and measures aimed at private businesses. In some counties, tax collection has become increasingly harsh. Small business owners who once received support now face annual taxes of tens of thousands of yuan on revenues of only 100 or 200,000 yuan. Even more alarming, private owners in mining, real estate, and education sectors have been repeatedly summoned and fined enormous taxes year after year. This destroys the confidence of entrepreneurs. As one resident noted, which owner would dare to invest now? People just mock them. To fill fiscal gaps, chaotic practices have emerged. For example, illicit driving test services charge tens of thousands of yuan for guaranteed passes. They funnel massive profits behind the scenes. Even if exposed, authorities typically act only when it's too late. This essentially seizes local wealth to plug fiscal holes. In such an environment, foreign investment retreats and local capital goes dormant. It leaves a county's economic self-funding ability completely destroyed. In reality, most Chinese counties do not generate wealth, they merely redistribute it. Their past prosperity relied on three things. Today, all three are under severe threat. 1. Fiscal allocation. The core source of a county economy comes from government-funded workers, civil servants, teachers, doctors. In a county of several 100,000 residents, over 20,000 government-supported personnel could account for 60% of commercial street consumption. But with the end of real estate windfalls and shrinking land sale revenues, the local fiscal reservoir has run dry. The crisis has spread from remote areas to central regions. Even in Jinan, the capital of a major economic province, reports emerged of delayed or frozen salaries for teachers. When the system can no longer guarantee wages for public employees, county restaurants, clothing stores, and entertainment venues that rely on their spending are bound to face mass closures. 2. Remittances from migrant workers. The second major artery is the income sent home by young workers employed in the Yangtze River Delta and Pearl River Delta. This was once the main source for home purchases, daily consumption, and children's education. Yet global decoupling, export pressure, and the domestic manufacturing transition have reduced employment absorption in city factories and low-end services. With wage cuts, layoffs, and rising unemployment, the flow of funds back to counties is visibly shrinking. 3. Pensions. The third hidden pillar is the pension of retirees. Large numbers of retired teachers, civil servants, and state-owned enterprise workers in county towns use their pensions, ranging from 4,000 to 7,000 yuan, to support children's loan payments and grandchildren's tuition, sustaining daily cash flow in markets and supermarkets. But this last pillar now faces a devastating demographic blow. Those born around 1963, the largest baby boom cohort in Chinese history, are hitting retirement around 2026. This has turned the social security system's outflows into a torrent. At the same time, declining birth rates mean fewer young contributors to replenish the funds. In some northeastern provinces, pensions are already being paid quarterly. This starkly exposes massive gaps in local finances. When this generation is no longer working, or if pension disbursements are widely delayed, the final economic foundation of county towns could be completely drained. Understanding China's counties is key to understanding the hidden dynamics of the national economy. What is happening in these towns is not isolated. It reflects the broader macroeconomic pressures of a rapidly shifting population structure and peaking debt cycles. First, the county housing market is experiencing difficult conditions. Without industry or population inflows, property has lost its financial liquidity. Long vacancy periods and multi-month selling cycles trap household savings in concrete buildings that cannot circulate. Second, residents face dilemma of urban-rural squeeze. Rapid urbanization concentrates education and healthcare resources into county towns. This prompts farmers to buy property in town. Yet without concurrent employment growth, people struggle to find stable work. Returning to rural areas means facing lifestyle and resource gaps. This amplifies anxiety among the lower-income population. Third, an era of overall economic contraction is emerging. The aging population is rising sharply, while the proportion of young adults declining. This is not merely downgrading consumption, it's a structural shrinkage of consumer demand. The previous model of rapid growth fueled by demographic dividends, high leverage, and large-scale infrastructure can no longer succeed in a zero-sum environment. Today, ordinary residents are forced into a survival logic of 4 steps. They rely on past savings, take on debt, do casual work, and severely cut daily expenses. The most vulnerable are middle-aged people burdened by mortgages and car loans. Job loss or business losses can instantly push them to the brink. Without parental financial support, they face true economic depression. Unlike the 1990s or early 2000s, when falling meant there was always a chance to start over, today the market is saturated with uncertainty and lack of confidence. Both outside investors and local private owners have frozen investment intentions. Anyone attempting to invest against the trend risks ridicule. With the prevailing mindset now focused on tightening daily expenses, expectations for explosive economic growth have vanished. Yet in the face of long-term economic decline and structural deadlock, many lower-income residents do not show overt despair. Instead, they drift into a state of numb inertia, like frogs in slowly heating water. With macroeconomic narratives too distant to influence their reality, they pass the long, draining days at mahjong tables and lottery counters. They use these fleeting thrills to dull the pain of their circumstances.
We have developing news that could shake up air travel for international passengers. Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin is renewing his threat to stop customs processing at airports in sanctuary cities.
So, sanctuaries like New York, LA, and Chicago have just been put on notice. Because after nonstop rioting at the New York area ICE headquarters, Homeland Security is telling these lawless strongholds they're going to be domestic-only travel destinations unless they change, which the radicals running these places have promised not to do.
That's right. So keep in mind the Trump administration has long been opposed to sanctuary cities, and now there's this effort to figure out a way to get cities to cooperate with immigration and customs enforcement, taking international away from the international airport.
We have to prioritize where we put federal employees because local law enforcement won't protect their streets, not federal streets, city streets. So we're not going to halt the flights. What we're saying is we just won't be able to process them because we don't have officers there. We're going to have to pull out.
And not processing them essentially forces the airlines, not to mention international passengers, to avoid those airports.
These are major hubs, and there's no place to put these large jumbo jets without causing massive disruption.
Do you see you having to take resources immediately, and that could have ended?
If things, yeah, that's right, Brian. If things don't change, we're going to have to make this step pretty quick. What are you
doing? So what do you do if it's your job to protect a country from lawless cities that have decided to rebel against immigration law? This might be it. And one of the few things still keeping these places on the map as they implode is the fact that they've got these large international airports. Take those away and poof. What you're looking at here is the peaceful law enforcement response to lawless conditions proclaimed by radicals as somehow being great for America, when in reality, each fugitive harbored by a sanctuary city is just one more reason for criminals and gangs profiting off the US border to try and stay in business. While the politicians behind this mayhem think it will carry them to victory in the US midterm elections. Meanwhile, all these sanctuaries, what do they have to brag about? They're number one in home invasions, number one in gang activity, number one in public transit crime. In fact, there isn't a sanctuary city in America with an international airport accomplishing anything of note. Plus, these places are the most unaffordable cities you could possibly live, with apartments in New York breaking the $5,000 a month barrier for a tiny little shoebox you can't even sit down in. And that brings us to the real reason these airports are such an appealing battleground for a peaceful campaign to restore order by Homeland Security. If you take away these international airports, anybody coming to these places to try and go in or out of the country or wants to stay there because of that is gonna leave, and that's the last thing these sanctuaries want. And there's the money. JFK alone is responsible for around $36 billion in annual economic activity for the New York City area, and when combined with its sister airports, LaGuardia and Newark, we're talking almost $100 billion. That's gonna completely disappear if something like this happens and these places don't get in line. Which brings up a big question. If you're a sanctuary city and it's your goal to help people break immigration laws, should you even have an international airport?
Some of these cities have international airports. If they're a sanctuary city, should they really be processing customs into their city? And
Good
we're
question.
asking them to partner with us at the airport, but once they walk out of the airport, they're not going to enforce immigration policy.
Right, so you can have a plane that lands in JFK from anywhere on the planet, and people are gonna walk off that plane, get checked into our country, and be on the streets of a city that wants to help them violate the terms they just agreed to. Isn't that wild? However, as you're about to see, these sanctuary cities, they say they care about having an open border and that allegedly protecting people from ICE is a great thing, but that's not the real thing they care about at all. And fascinatingly, all of this came to light several weeks ago, and then it disappeared. But now it's back because of what one sanctuary city just allowed to have happen. In fact, this is still going on. Watch this.
Anti-ICE protesters raging out of control, tensions boiling over outside the New Jersey detention center as Democratic lawmakers take their side against what they claim is inhumane conditions.
Returning from Delaney Hall, it is a problem on so many different levels. Ultimately, improved conditions is an immediate concern, but overall, my concern is that facility should not exist in my city and my state.
ICE continues to blatantly lie about the conditions in all of these detention facilities.
This detention center must shut down.
So here we are, in 2026. And last year, we had the same people in front of the same facility saying all the same stuff, and Fox News went on a tour of that place. It's got a soccer field, it's got a gym, it's got a library, it's got a computer room, plus everybody being held in an ICE detention facility is only there for one particular reason, and that reason is they do not want to self-deport. Everybody there could leave immediately if they would just tell DHS, yes, I am ready to go back to my home country. But people are allowed to stay there if they wish to fight the terms of their detainment and try to stay in the US, even if they're here without permission. They've got an entire tour of this place. It's still up. Anyone can see what it looks like in here. It is not the miserable place lawmakers on one side of the aisle are claiming. But what about this idea that sanctuary city airport shutdowns are some form of retaliation against these places? Because that's the other angle being brought up here. Is that true, or is there a valid reason for this?
It absolutely does. This is what their base is all about, this extreme left base that is anti-police. You have Chuck Schumer, who's never had a job outside of politics in his entire adult life for 40 years, that just believes in this continued political theater, and they're stirring the pot, as I would say. And this right here is what's causing us to have to make decisions on prioritizing where we put federal officers. We called local police, we called state police multiple times. Listen, I know the law enforcement there would love to respond because of Governor Sherrill's behavior and what the governor is doing. He's not allowing public officers and state officers to respond. So since they won't respond and help protect the streets, because we're not saying protect our building, we're saying protect the streets, allow our employees to go in and out, allow these transfers to happen. If they're not allowing it, then we got to prioritize federal police officers, and that may affect international flights coming in and out of their airport. Because
So if you have a place that is so corrupt and is so lawless that mobs are just everywhere and they are shutting down roadways and going after federal employees who are trying to get to work, you're going to have to take federal employees who perform a security role from the closest location you can find them, which is over at the airport, and you're going to have to bring them to that location to restore order so the federal government can function and can do its job. What a concept that people standing in front of this facility, calling it inhumane, even though it's not, do not understand and are not even willing to think about. This isn't revenge, this is just common sense, which would also dictate that housing dangerous criminals who've broken laws in your country is also a good idea. But nope, that's not what the mobs want. They want everyone inside this place to be set free, which means that this is not revenge. This is just logical planning in the most efficient way possible. And guess who's really upset about that?
They're drawing up plans to halt international flights to anywhere the sanctuary cities, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. So no more international flights to those airports?
No, I wouldn't say all of them. I'm saying when we have situations, what's happening in New Jersey right now, when we have to prioritize where we put federal employees because local law enforcement won't help protect their streets, not federal streets, city streets, and keep them from barricading and causing harm to our employees, then we have to decide where we're going to prioritize our federal employees. So we're not going to halt the flights. What we're saying is we just won't be able to process them because we don't have officers there. We're going to have to pull out our Customs and Border Patrol officers that process these flights and put them in these facilities to help protect our employees coming out of work. By the way, and that's not their job. Their job is to do just what they said, Customs and Border Protection. However, since local law enforcement isn't able to do their job because they said, quote, they don't have the resources, well, we have to prioritize our resources as well.
Yep, that's right. This is forcing these local sanctuaries to get their own police who are being held back and who are not allowed to respond, and tell them to go out on the streets and get rid of the radical voters who are out there just running rampant. These people are all over the place, and they had days where they could just interact with ICE until this ultimatum was thrown down at the feet of the governor, and she belatedly decided to call in reinforcements and restore order to this besieged community. And the other problem is if you're going to shut down an airport over lawlessness, that is going to destroy the local economy. And if the excuse for shutting down that airport is because the local leaders made the streets so dangerous the federal government had to step in and clean things up, well, whose fault is it going to be? You see, this backfired big time on these radical leaders who were out there screaming. They're not out there screaming anymore. They don't want these airports to be paralyzed and have it be their fault because it's their mobs that are all over the place and reinforcements have to come from the airport.
Now protesters are calling for more help from Governor Mikey Sherrill.
They're so mad.
Their specific demands are for Governor Mikey Sherrill to get her down here instead of sending state troops to protect ICE.
In a statement, Governor Sherrill defended the deployment of state police, saying, quote, "This was absolutely necessary to protect public safety and avoid escalation from ICE."
Escalation?
What do you guys think about having state police being sent by the government of New Jersey?
Yeah, I think there's clarity that maybe the intention was to create safety, but we saw last night that if the police are here, they'll only escalate the violence.
So these mobs that are out there on the streets, they are very upset with their elected leaders right now. And that's the last thing leaders of these places wanted to happen. You see, they wanted another summer of 2025 where the mobs were out there all across our country fighting the federal government, rising up, and another American revolution to free themselves and all of us from the chains of tyranny from King George in Great Britain. But that's not what's happened here. Now that local police have to show up and restore order, it's the governor who's siding with ICE. It's the leaders of this place who just a few days ago were making noise and are now eerily silent, caving, as it were, to the Trump administration, who the mobs hate and have been told to hate for decades. And you know something? None of this has been about protecting immigrants or helping people or making communities safer, because the people housed in these detention facilities are folks who've been accused of committing a crime, and they're in the country without permission. Keeping people like that on the streets doesn't make the community safer. In fact, that's part of the reason a lot of these sanctuary cities have crime numbers that just defy explanation. They allow fugitives to break the law and they help them do it. And predictably, the people in front of this place screaming at it, they've been using the same excuse they used last year to try and shut it down.
You said these conditions are adequate for the situation. They say that the Homeland is lying, so I guess they're calling you a liar when you say the facilities are up to standard. What do you say to them?
Well, Cory Booker and I talked about his visit to the detention center. If you listen to what he says conditions need to change. But we fall within federal compliance. This isn't a Holiday Inn, Brian. We're not providing luxury housing. What we're doing is we're providing a sanitary place for them to be detained. Remember, we're detaining murderers. So, I mean, we have some real serious criminals there. Plus, every one of them broke the law. That's why they're there to begin with. And we're providing them 3 meals a day. We're meeting the calorie standard. And as I told Cory Booker and I told the other representatives that called me, I said, listen, they have commissary. If you want to put money on their books, put money on their books. That's fine. But we not only provide them a safe place to stay and the food and a place to sleep, but we're also giving them a convenience store to be able to buy products out of.
So there's a convenience store inside this detention facility, which also has a soccer field and a gym and a library and a computer room. And people can shop at the convenience store if they're at all unhappy with the 3 meals a day that they get. But the problem is the people inside aren't getting any help from the outside. All the people you see on the streets protesting this place, standing in front of it and screaming, a lot of us think these might be paid agitators. They might be connected with groups that are funding all of this mayhem, but none of that funding makes it to the people inside who apparently have conditions that are so deplorable it needs to change right now. And it could, but the protesters are taking all the money and it doesn't make it to the people inside that would be able to spend it at the convenience store. What a scam. And then the other question I have about all of this is, if these folks that are in there, if they are such beloved members of their community that have been here for such a long time and have deep roots in America and should never have to leave, how come these people who the director of Homeland Security just described as being extremely dangerous, why don't they have anyone sending them money? Why aren't their families sending them money? Why isn't their local church sending them money? We're always told, oh, these faith leaders are so horrified by it. Well, where's the money? Prove it. There's no proof that the defenses for why this place should be shut down actually exist. And to understand that, you got to see inside of it. This is inside the facility.
You know, all kinds of recreation facilities, outdoor soccer fields, weight equipment, domino tables.
Games.
It also has telephones everywhere with signs next to them of how they can, the phone numbers to reach their consulates. It also has legal facilities, computer, webcams. Their doors on the bedrooms, on the places where they sleep, aren't even locked.
Wow.
The facility is actually looks like a high school. It actually looks better than a lot of high schools and a lot of our own.
It's not even a jail. You've got people that are able to leave their room whenever they want and go to the library and play games. And we're being told that the conditions here are inhumane. We're being told to picture the worst prison in world history, and that's where people are being. It's anything but that.
The facility is actually looks like a high school. It actually looks better than a lot of high schools, and a lot of our own prisons for American citizens could take a lesson from this facility. In fact, the director of ICE, who took me around, he told me, Todd Lyons told me, that they can't even contract with state and local prisons and facilities. They have to use private facilities because their standards are so high, and it's just too expensive for them to retrofit.
So they can't contract contract with the people that are running Rikers Island, which is a deplorable jail in New York where these protesters should be, to run this jail because it's so horrible, the federal government won't allow it. So things here are better. This is the nicest jail you could be in. And listen to how fast people can leave.
Tell somebody in the facility, hey, I'm ready to be done with this. I just want to go home to my country. If you do that, the American government through ICE will arrange within 48 hours a free flight and $1,000 so you can get out. So the idea that they are here with no agency, that they are being, detained with no choices, that's not true. They have a choice to self-deport, and they make it really easy.
Rachel, and remember that? Remember people getting paid to self-deport? You can be in this ICE facility, and you can get paid to self-deport. They will pay you to get on a plane and obey America's laws. The only reason people are here is because they don't want the money and they don't want to obey the laws. They want to stay here. In fact, you may even have people inside this facility who were in touch with activists outside and are even there on purpose. We saw evidence a year ago that people were communicating with cell phones that were inside that facility somehow with the people on the inside and the outside FaceTiming each other. And that's another thing. If people inside have access to technology, where are the leaks of the horrible conditions in here? I would love to see some of those, because certainly then we'd have some evidence that would outrage every American. But nope, that doesn't exist. The only thing we got here is an interview as evidence that proves that this place is one of the nicest jails you could possibly be in. In fact, it's not even a jail. People are not on lockdown. They're not in individual cells. They've got a door to a sleeping area which has multiple bunks in it, and it's not even locked. Yet people are rioting to a point where their sanctuary airport is now in jeopardy. That's pretty ridiculous. What do you think about that? I'll see you in the next video.
Rahman has now surpassed Spencer Pratt, but in a very bizarre, seemingly non-typical way.
By about 3,000 votes into that critical second place spot, if Rahman holds on to her lead, she'll advance to the runoff election against Mayor Karen Bass in the fall. Now, before the ballot dump yesterday, Spencer Pratt posted in part writing, "We've got all the way till July 6th to keep counting. They're not the only ones who know where to find votes." Now, moments after the new numbers came in, Mayor Karen Bass's campaign
I really
released a
wonder if Spencer Pratt all of a sudden found a ballot dump of 100,000 ballots all for Spencer Pratt. Would the Democrats flinch and be like, okay, wait, let's check the voter ID. Let's check all the background. Where do these ballots come from? Who were they? Would they do a full-on audit of those 100,000 votes for Spencer? Or would they just say, hey, good for Spencer. He's maxing out democracy.
Statement attacking Rahman and labeling Rahman her general election opponent, seemingly ruling out a Pratt comeback. A Bass spokesperson writing, "We look forward to winning a contest against an opponent who allows encampments near schools and fights against hiring more cops, yet is MIA on saving Hollywood jobs and fighting back when ICE invades LA." Now,
wait. She wants the easier fight. This is like when a boxer wants to get their record up there and they would rather fight a bum. She knows Rahman is a bum. She wants to fight her.
On Friday, we interacted with an assistant U.S. attorney inside the ballot counting facility here. The DOJ says he was observing. And the first assistant U.S. attorney in L.A., Bill Asaley, says California has refused to give the federal government its voter rolls
because they signed an emergency legislation Governor Gavin Newsom did right before the election. I think it was just a week before the election, saying feds can't seize our voter rolls and intimidate us. And it was like, wait, it almost seems like you guys plotted this and knew we'd want to look into them first.
And allows first-time voters to use IDs like gym and debit cards. Yes. Asaley also writes, California allows third parties to collect and turn in ballots on voters' behalf, a practice known as ballot harvesting with few restrictions.
And I'll tell you right now, any apartment I've lived in Los Angeles, you always receive ballots from people that have been there forever ago. It would be illegal to cast those, but I don't know what would they do to stop them. Like, obviously don't do this. Don't risk your freedom to prove a point. Terrible idea. Do not do this. But you really wonder, do they have a way to stop people from doing this? This seems scary. And how many like duplicate registrations are out there? Meaning to say, if two of them got cast, how would they know which one was the right one and which one was a wrong one?
This makes it difficult to track who actually received, completed, and submitted each.
They say, Decoy, the blind lady counting votes you showed me in the earlier video had you just astonished. It is sad how deep the rabbit hole goes, and they just want you to think, safest and most secure elections ever.
Ballot. Now, Asaley says there are ongoing voter fraud investigations here in Southern California. He points to a recent woman who was arrested for allegedly paying people on Skid Row to register to vote. Bill, Dana.
Matt Finn, thank you. Nice to see
you. Yeah, the thing that never happens seems to happen a lot. But after several days of counting ballots, right off the bat, Decision Desk HQ says, hey, she's now the winner. Literally the second they found a ballot dump that made her winning, she was already declared the number 2. She's the winner to go on to the runoff. The second it happened. This is just like before, I think, what was it? Becerra was even beating Hilton, or it might have been Stein. I don't know. Before Becerra was beating Hilton, they said, oh, he has less votes than Hilton, but we're going to go ahead and say he's already made it to the primary. It's kind of like that emergency break glass scenario that Newscam talked about is already happening. But they're talking about Hey, this has never happened before. What's going on with this primary where this graph is absurd? Like, is it, how in the world? Election night, I think she had single-digit percentages for her. Early counting of mail-in ballots, nowhere. She got, like, what is it, 10,000 extra votes? She was doing horrendously. But then all of a sudden, when they knew how much ground they needed to make up, she's making these giant jumps. Giant jumps. Just keeps on going, keeps on going. It looks awfully reminiscent of a certain other graph we saw way back in 2020. But Lauren Chen pointing out, hey, it makes no sense, where they said, this means that there's an expected 870,000 votes total. The 2022 mayoral primary only had 646 votes cast. That means LA's population decreased since 2022. But you mean to say in 2026, more people have been casting ballots for an unknown city councilwoman that nobody cared about until now. Well, they don't even care about it now. There's more voter turnout here than ever. It doesn't seem to make sense, but when the mainstream media is out here saying, guys, it's a conspiracy theory if you think this is suspect. Again, we're not confirming anything nefarious happened. We're just saying, this looks interesting. I don't know if I trust it, but CNN needs you to know if you think otherwise, you're a bad person.
The president says that it's rigged somehow. It's not. This is just the way they do it. But the thing is, the person who might be most upset about all of this, not a Republican, but the incumbent mayor of Los Angeles, Democrat Karen Bass.
Because the Democrats know they don't care which Democrat they have. If they have the socialists on the left, they got the socialists on the right. They still answer to the DSA or whatever they call it. They still control the Democrat politician. If you bring in a reality TV star that doesn't care that he looked like a bad guy on television for the 4 years The Hills was on the air, whatever that was, they don't control that guy. He can do whatever he wants. He can say, I'm going to bring in the IRS to bust up all the shady politicians. That scares them. Karen Bass may not like this, but the Democrat Party would much rather have the idea that no matter where the coin flips, they win. They knew that if Spencer got in there, they might lose because she can't withstand, 6 more months of Spencer campaigning on her failures.
With us now is Chief Data Analyst Harry Etten. What am I talking about here?
Yeah, this is the dumbest conspiracy theory I have ever heard because the
this guy's usually based too, but it's so bad.
Karen Bass wanted Spencer Pratt in the run-up. They don't want any part to do with it.
She would lose to Spencer Pratt on a free and fair election. Maybe she knows something about ballot harvesting that we don't, but she wouldn't want that. I think somebody was even saying this would be like Hillary wanting Donald Trump, thinking she was going to cartwheel into a victory, not knowing how much populist candidates do, how well populist candidates do.
And why is that? Because just take a look here. Okay, mayor runoff polls, Bass versus opponent versus Pratt. Bass would have crushed Pratt by 18 points.
I don't care about. Remember when Kamala was supposed to sweep Donald Trump? Remember Hillary was supposed to sweep Donald Trump? All of the polls have been notoriously flawed for such a long time. These things, I almost would rather have my horse blinders on if I was running. Say, hey, ignore all of the polling because it's done by left-wing activist groups. Just see what people on the street are saying, see what social media is saying, and something as simple as a podcast appearance between Donald Trump and Joe Rogan and Kamala Harris on the Call Her Daddy podcast, that tells you more about the traction you have in the real world. It seems stupid, but it was accurate.
That's what the polling showed. Look at how she does against Nithya Raman, on the other hand. Raman is ahead by 4 points. Bass has a real race on her hand if, in fact, Raman is the one who advances. And, of course, the Democratic establishment is backing Karen Bass. But versus Spencer Pratt,
They don't care. Either one of them is easily controlled by them. Equally shady.
Was crushing him. She wanted to face Pratt. She wanted nothing to do with Raman. That's why these conspiracy theories, simply put, make no sense, people.
We're not saying the conspiracy theory isn't coming from her party. We're saying this has never happened before. It looks awfully familiar to what happened in 2020, and yet it's always there. Now, a lot of people want to talk about this thing about the ballot jump that Raman got. It was like 20,000 ballots, and Spencer got 0. LA Times says it's a glitch.
Was there a batch of votes in LA County in which Spencer Pratt received no votes and Karen Bass and Nithya Raman received thousands? That's the speculation of a lot of folks online.
Again, LA Times has almost zero credibility, but we're open-minded. We're not going to say, we don't like Reddit, so we're never going to look at Reddit threads. It's like, no, we want to dissect what's happening over there. Don't trust them, but let's hear them out.
Since Tuesday's primary elections in Los Angeles, it was prompted by some updated figures on media websites, including the Times.
Wait, media, our website, they mean.
Website that suggested there was such an update. I dove into it. A lot of people have been speculating that it's...
We audited ourselves, and there's nothing wrong here.
evidence of fraud. Even Elon Musk tweeted about it. But speaking with the Associated Press, which collects data from LA County and feeds it out to various media outlets around the country, including the Times, it was the result of a lag in an automated collection of the data, in which there was one data collection that captured votes in a single batch of votes for Bass and Rahman, and then about 1 minute later, the collection of...
I really wonder if they weren't going to dump that other batch for Spencer if nobody noticed it. If it wasn't for Elon Musk buying Twitter and posting about this on Twitter, would they have been like, oh, case closed? Too bad about that glitch.
Rest of that same batch of votes, including a bunch of votes for Pratt and none for Bass and Rahman, which is to say that there was, for about a minute, updated figures on media websites that showed that there was a batch of new votes for Bass and Rahman and none for Pratt, but the votes that were part of that same batch for Pratt came about a minute later. I spoke with a Stanford professor, Justin Grimmer, who went through the data.
Your degrees mean nothing to us. Oh, Stanford professor. You mean the guy that took all the woke DEI courses? Like, they've destroyed their credibility so far that it almost, when you hear the word Stanford professor, I'm like, okay, what DEI nonsense did you inject into the ballots here?
Himself came to the same conclusion. He said there were clearly two updates that split the vote from this single batch, and he said the fraud claims were the result of a lot of people these days watching elections extremely closely,
as we should,
watching these updates on media websites.
What's
and
wrong with this?
The LA County...
Why publish it if you don't want anybody to notice anything?
The elections folks I spoke to also said there is no fraud, but again, there was...
Yeah, Stanford professor equals radical leftist. Exactly.
No batch of votes without any Pratt votes. There was sort of a 1 minute variation between the upload of...
There was no batch of votes. It was a 1 minute variation. Every single time they try to have a euphemism for the strange things that happens, they always make it worse. Oh, guys, it wasn't ballot stuffing. It was a 1 minute variation
of Bass and Rahman votes and Pratt votes on some media websites. Officials and others who have reviewed the data say that is not any proof of fraud. There was no fraud.
So they didn't really point anything out, they said it. But the one thing I will believe is, like, okay, don't believe Los Angeles Times. But I do believe the U.S. Attorney, Bill Asaley, saying there's a claim circulating on social media about an election night ballot update on the Los Angeles Registrar of Voters where one candidate received 0 votes. We reviewed official county records. The claim is false. Each candidate received votes in every update. My office will continue monitoring the election counting process and will follow evidence where it leads. If anybody has credible information concerning election fraud, please send it to their tip line. So, could have genuinely been a glitch. I don't trust LA Times write a story correctly. I don't trust them to get their ballot dumps correctly. But if Bill Asaley's saying, hey, I'm actively searching for this thing, and that was a rumor, I'm inclined to believe this more than anything. Yeah, you believe Trump more than all the mainstream media, exactly, because we don't trust when this happens. It kind of seems like it happened again. But the bizarre thing is, it's not the fact that this looks awfully close to this, like these two things, right? It's the fact that, how did you have, if mail-in ballots are all for Democrats, oh, they send in their ballots and they get them harvested later on, so it's always going to favor them. Why did it only favor the number 3 candidate and not the number 1 candidate? Because if all the Democrat votes come in later, how come this graph doesn't look like this graph? And how come the only person that had like their faucet turned off was Spencer Pratt? Kind of seems like something suspect happened. Again, this might just be a glitch, but nobody's believing this. This has never happened in the history of United States elections, except for the fact that it has back in 2010. Good job, Wokeness, finding this stuff over here. Kamala Harris, looking to be the Attorney General of California, had something similar happen, and we weren't aware of it.
4 weeks after the November 2nd election.
Why is it 4 weeks after any election we're calling a victor? We're third world.
California finally has declared a winner in the Attorney General race.
Same thing will probably happen to Hilton. It's happening to Hilton already.
Harris finished so close to her Republican opponent that it took a month to finish counting every...
Why did it take a month, and why do you always stop counting once your person wins? Kind of seems like the moment she surpassed Spencer, they already knew. How do you know that another comeback can't happen? How do you know that Spencer won't pull away anymore? Why did you already call it for her? Seems like they have a formula right now. It's sickening.
Vote. She won by less than 1 percentage point.
Interesting stuff that this happens only one way. They've been getting away with it for 10 years, and I think that people are calling it out saying they may have overstretched their hand. It almost seems like they've had a thing where it's like, yeah, we do this thing, ballot harvesting. Maybe not necessarily fraud, but ballot harvesting, like a voter ID, this seems shady. But it's almost like a check, like, what are you gonna do about it? This looks very blatant blatant. But what is the Trump administration going to do about this? They try to throw him in prison. It doesn't seem like he's done anything like that to them. If he's not willing to stand up right here and try to figure this out, they're probably going to end up doing it again. Because you see this, what Amy Reichart's saying, once they get the ballot, it doesn't have any voter information. So if you didn't verify the ID, whatever, the signature, whatever, once the ballot has been cast, it's like they separate the identification of who cast the ballot from the voter information in the actual ballot. Why would you separate the two of those unless you wanted to make it untraceable? It seems like it's done on purpose because, yeah, Bill Melugin calling out, a woman registered their dog to vote and they successfully voted in the Gavin Newsom recall. She got caught. She's pled guilty. The dog was able to vote, but it's because the federal election, the ballots in the 2022 primary was ejected because the feds will look into it, but not the local California voter registration. It's happening, but sad to say, filthy normies don't know about it. Like Stephen A. Smith, he's a sports guy. He's just a sensationalist. I mean, I appreciate him for his sport takes, but it's insane that they're telling him about, hey, what California does with no voter ID, they've been doing it for a while. He's almost floored at the idea that what we've all known about, looking into this, where a dog can register to vote, he's bewildered by it, and that's why it's very important to, like, you know, share that decoy voice video with your normie friend saying, we have a problem in California.
I think the fact that we don't have voter ID in places like California is extremely unusual in democracies across the globe. There's maybe like 2 or 3 democracies in the world that don't have it. This is just kind of like...
it's not a real democracy if you don't have voter ID, in my opinion.
A standard administrative requirement in a well-functioning democracy. So I think we should just have it. We should get this over. We should move on with our...
He doesn't believe it. He's like, no, you're exaggerating.
Lives. You know, it shouldn't be a big controversial issue.
So, okay, Stephen A. Smith, you don't care. But I think it's important to take the temperature of normies. I was a filthy normie, still kind of a filthy normie. But you got to think about, what does the average basketball fan that doesn't keep up with politics, what are they ignorant to? Not because ignorant is a bad thing, but because you live in a different world. What does a normie not understand of how this is a cheat?
Excuse me for being so ignorant, asking last question. This is definitely my last question. What do you mean you don't have voter ID in California? Could you please elaborate specifically on that for my audience that may not know?
Exactly. Yeah, California does not have voter ID. You don't need to present it to register. You don't need to present it to vote. As a matter of fact, the state passed a law forbidding voter ID. Cities, counties, if they
forbidding
want ID,
it's illegal to show you ID. Illegal to ask for it. Illegal to show it.
They're not allowed to under state law.
What?
We in California, we protect liquor sales more than we do democracy. Let that sink in.
When did that happen?
A couple years ago, because I think it was Orange County, they wanted to have their own requirements, so the state passed a law saying, no, you're not allowed to. Voter ID is not only not required, it is actively forbidden.
Yes.
Well, that's right. That's it right there. That's why the SAVE Act been proposed. Right there, the state of California. That's what the Republicans going to lean on as an excuse to definitely push forth the SAVE Act. Right there. Right there.
Most Americans, left or right-leaning, want the SAVE Act to be passed. It's garbage Republicans that are blocking it.
I can't believe it. I didn't even know that, sir. I'm embarrassed to admit.
But it's good. He didn't start shouting, you're a racist, how dare you? Some black people don't know how to get an ID. They don't know how to go to the DMV. They don't know what a computer is. No, he just said, hey, look, I was ignorant to it. I'm glad I know it now.
There's a lot of crazy things going on in California, but I think, you are seeing a return to sanity in some ways, and I see it Democrats, Republicans, and independents in California who are saying, we need to do some things differently in this state.
By the way, last thing, that no voter eligibility required. That's Gavin Newsom. Last 2 years, that was Gavin Newsom.
Yes.
Correct.
I kind of think Stephen A. Smith thinks he can run against Gavin Newsom. He's not. He doesn't have a chance, but this might be positioning for that.
Well, so the law saying that a locality cannot have its own voter ID requirement. That was Newsom.
There you go. That was Newsom. That's all I needed to know. Thank you, sir. Representative Kevin Colley here with Stephen A. Really
good job on that over there. But it is the idea that all these weird things that happen with voting